Some actually good news in the new inflation numbers. Quite a significant drop. This shows, perhaps maybe the Federal Reserve can quit trying to crush the economy and put everybody out of work because inflation is in fact cooling. Slowed sharply in June to its lowest pace in more than 2 years. Consumer price index increased 3% in June relative to a year earlier. That's a slowdown from 4% in May. We've got some numbers here about exactly where that inflation is coming from. Let's go ahead and put A1 up on the screen. This is from Heather Long on the I guess it's on your screen, the right-hand side as well. You see the inflation numbers. You can see the drop-off that came in June. That's quite a significant, development. But if you look into the numbers here, you can see where there is still a significant amount of inflation, and actually rent is a big part of it, plus 8.3% in the past year. Eating out, still on the rise, plus 7.7% in the past year. Car maintenance has gotten significantly more expensive, 12.7%. Car insurance also spiking 16.9%. And then she also has the areas where inflation has eased a lot. You have gas down 26.5%, used cars down 5.2%, meat relatively static at this point, but down 0.2%, and airfare down 18.9%. So, this is encouraging for sure. And the other piece of this was that for the first time in a long time, wages actually rose a greater amount than inflation. We'll show you some of those numbers in a minute. At the same time, this is why the picture is so mixed, because people have been struggling with this inflation for so long. You have student loan debt payments set to restart. You've got Americans with record-breaking amount of credit card debt. You have a bunch of pandemic-era programs that help people out in the short term that have all more or less been rolled back at this point. So in terms of how people feel about the economy, even with some positive numbers just now coming out, the answer is still not great. Let's put this up on the screen. There was a poll from Economist YouGov, asked people, do you believe the U.S. is currently in an economic recession? Not are we heading there, not is there a chance of one, but do you feel that we are right now in a recession? And you have very close to a majority saying yes. 47% say yes, 29% say no, and 24% say not sure. So a solid majority, very large majority, saying either yes, we're in a recession, or we might be, I'm not sure. So that's kind of at odds with some of the big picture economic numbers that we've been getting out recently, and big debate about why this is. Is it that, people just don't understand how good they really have it? Obviously, that's not really what we think here, but there are people that are arguing that. Others are saying, listen, there are a lot of factors that go into this, and the realities I just stated of, the high levels of debt, the fact that key things like shelter, housing, food, that these are still really expensive. People are still really being stretched. And in fact, there was another story in the Washington Post about how many Americans are having to resort to an installment plan just to pay for groceries. Let's go ahead and put this next piece up on the screen about wage growth. They're significantly above inflation for the first time since March 2021. They're up 4.4%. So that's a big deal. That could change the way people are feeling about the economy if that continues in this direction. And at the same time, it's confusing because you've still got the recession warning. The inverted yield curve is still in place, sending a strong signal that typically means we're headed towards a recession. But they quote a number of analysts in this New York Times piece that say maybe this time it won't end up being predictive because we're in such a weird space post-pandemic, and maybe this really just reflects optimism about what the Fed is ultimately going to do. So that's everything we know.
Yeah, it's actually a fascinating portrait because it's one of those where the Biden folks can say, hey, look, wages are finally outstripping inflation. But I always come back to the way that people feel. And, often people are like, oh, facts are not feelings. And I'm like, but on the economy, I actually kind of think it is. People are pretty good descriptors about how they are experiencing everyday life and whether they are wanting to, whether they are actually fulfilling the thing that they want on a very basic level. And, if you still look at the inflation data, sure, the overall number is down. What's the top one? Rent. Okay, well, if rent is up 8.3, if you're overall paycheck, you're spending 25, 30%, and your rent goes up by 8%. That's a ton of money of your disposable income. Second, eating out, one of the few luxuries that people have, up 7.7%. Car maintenance is still up 13%. That's always one of the biggest reasons in terms of why people go into debt. Health insurance, it's a health event, and cars. Those are like the two money pits that people get into. It's an unexpected thing. People very rarely save for it. They don't have the cushion. And then when it hits, the price is even higher and they can gouge you even more than they want to. Car insurance also up by 17%, largely as a result of some road accidents that we continue to see. But, you know, they're like, oh, gas is down by 26%. Yeah, it dropped from $5 a gallon, so it's still $3.50. Used cars, they're down 5. Still, I did monologues here. It is nearly impossible right now to buy a used car for less than $20,000, which I can't even say that out loud because it sounds so crazy to me. And then airfare, same thing. Airfare is down by 18.9%. But as I have described here, and so did we, I believe we did an entire thing about this, Krystal, the price to a destination, which has anything even tangentially to do with vacation, is higher than ever before. So yeah, I guess the Boise to Montana route is down a little bit, but try flying to Europe right now. I mean, I told you this, my flight was canceled on my way over to India. They were like, yeah, the next flight we can put you on is 3 days because every flight across the Atlantic is booked solid. So that's what people are actually dealing with, you know, on the desirable routes. Almost every one of these metrics, whenever you actually experience it, especially in a relatively high demand way, the cost is completely out of control.
Student loan debt payments are set to restart here very shortly. And the average monthly payment is about $393. So every month for people who are student loan debt holders, which is a lot of the country, and especially young people are just getting started out in their careers, is about $400 a month. That's a big hit.
A lot of money, yeah.
At a time when U.S. households hold a record $17 trillion in debt, including nearly $1 trillion in credit card debt. So there's a lot of overhang here, and so let's be clear, like, people are not crazy to feel like their financial situation is not great and to tell pollsters, yeah, to me, it feels like we may already be in a recession. But we should also say, if the numbers continue in this direction and you genuinely have wage growth that is outpacing inflation, which again has like not happened ever in my lifetime, and you have inflation continuing to cool, and you have the Fed taking off, you know, at least they may not put their foot on the gas, but at least taking their foot off of the brake, this is the best news possible. It's good for people in general. That's the best part of it. But if you're looking at the politics of this, I mean, these might be some of the most critical numbers in terms of whether Joe Biden is going to be able to get reelected or not. Because in 2022, you know, we really felt like, and a lot of people felt like, the fact that there was high inflation, people were feeling so poorly about the economy and right track, wrong track, that that was going to portend a potential large red wave, didn't materialize because of a variety of issues, but primarily abortion. You know, is abortion still going to be the key issue in 2024, or are people going to revert back to the economy being kind of their primary focus at a time when, you know, Joe Biden's numbers on the economy are trash? Like, they're not good, right? And so if you continue to have this kind of wage increase, lowering of inflation, the White House has to feel very good about these numbers and the fact that you have seen inequality come down over the past number of years. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see whether people actually start to feel this, start to feel like, all right, my wages are picking up. I'm able to, you know, make ends meet. I'm not having to take on more and more debt, as has been the trend over the past number of months. So we'll see if this trend is able to continue.
We'll see. I just think that because the fundamentals still remain so far out of reach, like with housing, rent, you know, continue to go up. Gas obviously is an immediate concern, but health insurance costs, car insurance costs, all of these, especially the fixed ones, and then the, you know, the event ones.
To me, housing is the big one.
Housing is a huge one.
And this is my whole monologue today. I mean, this issue just overhangs everything and puts stress on everyone who is not just like wealthy, you know, like pushing people into homelessness, people who are, you know, aren't able to afford rent anymore, getting pushed onto the streets, and then housing supply still incredibly constrained, impossible to get your foot on the ladder. I mean, there's just a lot of issues there, especially in terms of access to affordable housing. So I do think that is a big one that a lot of people don't notice.
Absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely correct.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.